Catching lightning in a bottle is near impossible, so doing it twice is shockingly twice as hard. That's just math. And look, to be fair, producing a video game sequel is tough. A good video game follow-up needs to not only recapture what made the original title work, it needs to make sure it's not just more of the same. Tragically, the following games did fall victim to things that could have gone wrong, in fact, going wrong. I'm Jess from WhatCulture, and here are 10 more video game sequels that completely missed the point. Number 10, Mirror's Edge Catalyst. The criminally underrated Mirror's Edge is a game that scratches the itch of players who love free running in titles like Assassin's Creed or Prince of Persia, but don't want all the other stuff. It's a fast-paced, tightly packed game that turns you into a parkour master. However, while the sequel, or technically it's a prequel, is similarly thrilling, it misses a major part of its predecessor's charm. Mirror's Edge Catalyst puts you back in the shoes of the expert runner Faith Connors. It fleshes out the world much more than its predecessor, but that becomes a sticking point as it switches the title to an open world experience. Now don't get me wrong, open world games are brilliant, but part of Mirror's Edge's charm was the slick level design catered towards quick-paced problem solving and speed. The switch to an open world strips that back, as those well-designed parts the player gets led down are less present. Catalyst is far from being a bad game, it's still a blast to play and will leave Mirror's Edge fans perfectly satisfied, but it's desperately missing that compact linear design that made the original so addictive. Number 9, Sonic Unleashed. Hands up if you're surprised to see a Sonic game here. If you raised your hand, then honestly, there's no hope for you. Plenty of Sonic games could have snagged a spot on this list. In fact, Lost World even appeared on the previous one. Still, the woefully bizarre Sonic Unleashed deserves its flowers for immaculately fumbling what makes this franchise so fun: speedy gameplay. Unleashed is yet another 3D Sonic game that makes way too many strange choices. The biggest being to turn the titular hedgehog into a were-hedgehog. I don't know who in the fan base wanted that, but the 3 people who did must have been stoked. That decision's supposed to be the unique selling point of this title, as it splits the game into 2. In the Blue Hedgehog's regular form, you'll get what you expect, with fast-paced rush gameplay. However, when he turns into a werehog, a bizarre thing to write and say, you're treated to meandering, slow-paced beat-em-up sequences. So basically they said, we've got a mascot whose whole shtick is gotta go fast. And then somebody thought, let's break the game up by slowing it down to a crawl. What a big brain move from the devs. Number 8, Mortal Kombat 1. Now, Mortal Kombat 1 spoilers are ahead, just to warn you. Longtime Mortal Kombat fans are certainly eating good with Mortal Kombat 1, but they're also eating something that tastes incredibly different from what NetherRealm promised. The mission statement for the latest Mortal Kombat game was that it would reset the series canon with a new beginning. That's a delightful idea, as the continuity was messy and convoluted, so a new start was needed. However, this game does the complete opposite of starting things fresh. Instead, it doubles down on everything that came before in a confusing and bombastic way, like the confusing and bombastic way that already existed. Mortal Kombat 1's narrative mode begins humbly by carving an original story set in a new timeline. However, as it progresses, it turns into a jumbled multiverse saga. Dear God, not another multiverse. The final act is crammed with old faces as characters from the previous continuity burst onto the scene, attempting to conquer the new timeline with alternate universe versions of the beloved fighters. How is this a fresh start when the whole thing centers on previous versions of the characters? It's less MK1 and more MK1.12 Deadly Alliance Armageddon versus the multiverse. Yeah, it doesn't quite run off the tongue. Number 7, Pac-Man 2: The New Adventures. If you heard the words Pac-Man 2, what kind of game would you expect? Perhaps something like Mrs. Pac-Man, which takes the beloved arcade classic and puts a slightly new spin on it. That would make sense. And what doesn't make sense is that the title of Pac-Man 2 belongs to a point-and-click adventure game. What the hell? The jump from arcade halls to home consoles was no easy feat, but Namco clearly thought they could lay down some good faith points by making a sequel to their legendary Pac-Man title. However, rather than taking the fantastic formula they'd already created, they started from scratch and made a puzzle-based adventure game. In Pac-Man 2: The New Adventures, you mull around as the iconic video game character in a cute little village and perform mundane tasks. It's a big departure from the simple yet addictive gameplay loop established in the original. Knowing that someone decided this would be a good idea makes you wonder just how out of touch with reality some studios are. Number 6. Metal Gear Survive. If you want to talk about killing a legendary video game franchise, then you've got to talk about Metal Gear Survive. The Metal Gear franchise found itself in sheer danger in 2015, as its creator, Hideo Kojima, fell out hard with publisher Konami and split. Still, that massive departure didn't stop Konami from trying to go to bank with the IP, so they shelled out a brand spanking new Metal Gear Solid game. Unfortunately, it arrived with all the grace and skill of a toddler jumping off a swing. Survive shifted the franchise's iconic stealth and espionage mechanics to run-of-the-mill zombie survival. Yeah, somebody really thought a franchise known for its innovation and envelope pushing could do with a generic zombie shooter. There were also plenty of dastardly business decisions made, like intense monetization. In fact, it was so bad players had to pay for extra save slots, which is just incredibly uncool. Kojima may have been a problem child at times, but if this is what happens when he's not there, then damn, give us his problems any day. He's earned them. Number 5. Bomberman Act 0. Gritty reboots of beloved franchises is something you just can't avoid in gaming, or any other medium come to think of it. Even the cutest video game mascots fell victim to this desire to be edgy, and Bomberman was no exception. Act 0 was developer Hudson Soft's attempt to drag this cutesy franchise kicking and screaming into the grim dark future. The game turned the colorful and sweet Maze Gunner into a dark robotic soldier with a giant hand. Additionally, the fun and frivolity of the setting got axed in favor of a post-apocalyptic nightmare. Did it work? Of course not. They absolutely massacred our boy. But don't just assume it was the tone they ruined, as the gameplay also got dragged through the mud. For example, the game featured a strange third-person mode and made it impossible to see your placement in the maze. As if that wasn't bad enough, it also slashed integral features like the well-established local multiplayer and even the save feature. Seriously, you can't even save? That's a choice. Number 4. Silent Hill Homecoming. You can say what you want about Silent Hill 3 and Silent Hill 4 The Room, but at least they got what Silent Hill was supposed to be. Sure, they were rough around the edges, but the spirit of this twisted horror franchise was still at the heart of them. Then you got Homecoming, which is about as faithful to the Silent Hill spirit as EA is to their fans. Ooh, burn. Homecoming was the first mainline SH installment produced without Team Silent, and boy does it show. While not an abysmal game in its own right, it completely missed what made the series so profound. For example, the gameplay is far more concerned with action than atmosphere and dread. Plus, it plays out linearly, which takes away that sense of exploration that was palpable in the other games. Additionally, the return of iconic monsters like Pyramid Head might seem like a good thing, but it rules out the town's reflection of the protagonist's inner turmoil. Why is Alex Shepard seeing the same creatures as James Sunderland? Oh, that's right. Brand recognition. Make no mistake, this is nothing more than a game masquerading as Silent Hill. Number 3. Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. Let's make one thing perfectly clear before we start. Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts is an incredibly fun game. That said, even calling it a Banjo-Kazooie game feels wrong, as it's one hell of a departure from what you'd expect from the IP. The Banjo-Kazooie franchise is a 3D platformer through and through, which is why it was so bizarre when this long-awaited sequel arrived and changed the formula so drastically you could barely recognize it. Rather than focusing on the platforming and exploration the franchise was known for, the core gameplay of Nuts and Bolts instead centered on vehicle building. The humor, fun art design, and characters were all there, but this distinct shift in direction instantly drew the ire of longtime fans. Again, the vehicle building mechanic was super enjoyable. You could even call it a fascinating prelude to Tears of the Kingdom's Ultra Hand system. Changing the formula so dramatically robbed fans of the traditional Banjo-Kazooie experience that so many of them craved so desperately. Number 2. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. That's right, it's time to take out the boxing gloves and once again start hammering Kill the Justice League. Is it getting old? Yeah, maybe a little bit, but does it still deserve it? 100%. The Arkhamverse trilogy is forever etched in the upper echelon of gaming greatness as one of the best series of all time. So when news broke that Rocksteady was working on a Suicide Squad title set in the same universe, it made gamers foam at the mouth. But that foamy excitement soon turned to anger when this diabolical title dropped. Kill the Justice League completely fumbled everything the devs had established. Phenomenal storytelling? Forget it. Let's have a generic narrative and season passes. Stunning mission design? Nah, let's opt for a mundane grindfest. A solid solo experience? Please, it's multiplayer or nothing. Okay, well, at least a good ending for Arkham vs. Batman? Well, you know how that turned out. The Arkham trilogy was an artistic triumph, whereas this is a lackluster live service game. It's a stain on the series, but now that it's out there, it just can't be ignored. Number 1, Shenmue 3. Can you imagine if the long-awaited Half-Life 3 got released out of nowhere but was damn near unplayable and didn't progress the story one bit? Wouldn't that just boil your blood? Well, that's what happened to Shenmue. This open-world martial arts series got a surprise lifeline nearly 2 decades after its cancellation with the release of a third game. Fans truly believed they'd get the chance to finish this story after 19 years of waiting, but that's the complete opposite of what happened. Shenmue 3 doesn't conclude the story at all. Instead, it pours all its effort into setting up the next chapter, which will never happen given the game's massive failure. Sadly, it kind of feels like franchise creator Yu Suzuki completely misunderstood the miracle of an opportunity that he received. Rather than seeing Shenmue 3 as a swan song for his once beloved franchise and a chance to conclude it, he saw it as an opportunity to spark interest and make even more games. In essence, Suzuki wasted this golden opportunity that many developers would have killed for and really let down fans in the process.